Hey guys, this is Morgan May, and I have a proverb refuel for you today. But first things first, I have to confess something to you, okay? When I was a kid, if you were to ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have told you, I want to be famous, or I want to be a boss. So your question to me would be, all right, what do you want to be famous for, and what do you want to be the boss of? And my response to you would have been, I just want to be famous, I just want to be the boss. You know what's funny is that I think that might be our way of thinking even now. I think we live in a world and a culture where the desire is to be known or to have power, to have influence over people. We think that when we're in the public eye and that's our sphere of influence, that's when we can be truly impactful. We think being in the public and being in power is the way to real purpose for the kingdom of God. But what's funny about that is that when we combine those two ideas, being famous, being known, and the kingdom of God, those two ideas, they don't actually come together all that well, because the example of Jesus tells us something different. The wisdom of Proverbs tells us something different. So I'm going to read to you Proverbs 25, verses 6-7 say this: "Do not put yourself forward in the king's presence, or stand in the place of the great, for it is better to be told, 'Come up here,' than to be put lower in the presence of a noble." It's funny because we're always trying to get the leg up. We're always trying to gain more ground, to gain more influence. But when you actually look at the person of Jesus in his ministry, it was actually ministry to the lowly. He was God in the flesh, born as a lowly baby into a manger, born to insignificant parents, born to an insignificant town. And in his ministry, he did ministry in a very humble, selfless way. He did ministry one-to-one. He talked to the small groups of people. He didn't try to assert political dominance or gain ground and authority. Instead, he was content to do ministry in the margins, to the marginalized people. It's why James warns us that God, he opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. God gives favor to the humble. If you're like me and you're sometimes worried, man, how am I going to get from here to there? How am I going to gain influence and purpose in this world? We can be sure of one thing. God took care of Jesus when he was in his most humble state of ministry. In his most humble season, God took care of him. And eventually God led him to the cross. And then in his death and resurrection, Jesus became the most impactful person in all of planet Earth. God will do the same for you. If you submit yourself humbly and faithfully to his leading, humbly serve his people, God will take you where you need to be for his purpose and for his glory.